Now, reports reaching us indicate that at least 8 people have been seriously wounded in an explosion in Nairobi's Eastleigh estate.
Police sources and eyewitnesses say the blast caused by an improvised explosive device occurred at Joska area shortly after 7 p.m. This attack comes barely 3 weeks after a grenade attack in a matatu in the same area killed 8 and injured 30 others.
Well, Eastleigh has endured several grenade attacks since the Kenya Defense Forces ventured into Somalia to fight the ragtag Al-Shabaab militia.
Let's continue with another story with what might be good news for the tens of politicians facing court cases. The principal institution charged with vetting the aspirants now says it will only bar candidates whose cases have been heard and concluded.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, however, says that all candidates will be required to get clearance from its offices before presenting their nomination papers.
And as KTN's Willis Angira reports, the moral and ethical standing of the politicians still remains under tight scrutiny.
89 days to the general election, and the integrity question is back to haunt politicians.
Anyone state officer is criminal unless proved otherwise by engaging in business.
The difficulty in terms of, for example, giving a commission the ability to vet an individual is that you will have difficulties in terms of objective criteria.
While others are waiting the outcome of court cases to know their fate, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has outlined the requirements for clearance for those seeking elective positions.
Identifying leaders who have good track records of honesty, integrity, good character, and are ready to serve the people of Kenya.
The self-declaration form mainly focuses on moral and ethical questions. The mandatory information requested touches on misuse of public resources, deregistration from professional organizations, declaration of income, assets and liabilities, being a subject of a disciplinary or criminal proceeding, and convictions for any offense leading to a sentence of at least 6 months. Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta and Eldoret North MP William Ruto, who are due to stand trial at the International Court of Justice for crime against humanity, can now breathe a sigh of relief as they would be free to run for elective office until their cases are determined and all avenues for appeal are exhausted.
Section 24(3) and 25(3) of the Election Act, it says that a person will not be disqualified above, that is in 2, unless all possibility of appeal or review of the relevant sentence or decision has been exhausted.
According to the Constitution, a leader is contemplated to be someone who carries dignity, legitimacy, and has the people's trust and confidence. But as the road to get clearance from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission was officially opened today, many of the aspiring candidates may struggle to fit this bill. Willis Angira, KTN, Nairobi.
And that story brings us to tonight's big question. We ask you, should politicians facing court cases be barred from the election? Should politicians facing court cases be barred from the elections? Send your brief comments, beginning with the word yes or no, to our SMS number 8040, and we'll surely sample some of your views at the tail end of this live newscast. Linda?
Well, to some politics now, and details are now emerging of the last-minute three-way deal involving Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto and Musalia Mudavadi. KTN has learned that Mudavadi may have finally secured what many analysts thought he was looking for, the chance to be a compromise candidate in the Ruto-Uhuru alliance. Detailed avail to KTN also suggest that the UDF leader has been offered 30% of all government appointments should the coalition triumph in March. KTN's Sam Ogina with the details of the pact dubbed the Jubilee Coalition.
The Deputy Prime Minister embarked on selling the deal to his party members a day after getting aboard the Uhuru Ruto vessel. Under the three-way pact dubbed the Jubilee Coalition, Mudavadi's party UDF, TNA and URP will each take a third of all government positions. Party sources say securing Mudavadi was a measure to clip the ODM, Wiper and Ford Kenya pact that brought together Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, NARC Charity Ngilu and Trade Minister Motangula.
In the event that one party takes the presidency or the deputy presidency, ceding certain seats, but which seats to be ceded and what percentages are to be negotiated.
To show up the numbers and face off with the Raila-led Coalition for Reform and Democracy CORD, the Uhuru-Ruto Pact has been amended to allow presidential nomination contest between Uhuru Kenyatta and Musalia Mudavadi. The winner will be the presidential aspirant while the loser becomes leader of majority. William Ruto stays on as the running mate.
Wakati tulisema pale mbeleni tunataka kuunda serikali katika awamu ya kwanza wa uchaguzi, we meant business.
Party sources say the nomination exercise may be a tactical exit strategy for Uhuru to leave the presidential ticket for Mudavadi. The silent retreat to be choreographed not to spark a backlash in central Kenya, where Kenya National Congress Peter Kenneth and NARC Kenya Martha Karua are waiting in the wings for the spoils. Analysts say the choice of Mudavadi as the apparent presidential candidate may be to diffuse the notion that Uhuru-Ruto Pact is a challenging Kikuyu alliance. Meanwhile, Ruto's running mate position remains untouched to rally the Rift Valley region. Sources say the URP leader had conceded a lot of ground in the unity talks, and a lesser position might provoke a revolt and withdrawal of the region's support.
Our motto has always been 90 minutes and no extra time.
Emerging details indicate NARC presidential hopeful Charity Ngilu may be walking a tightrope. Ngilu backtracked from the Uhuru-Ruto Pact even after securing a 15% share in the arrangement. But on Tuesday evening, after the ODM Wiper Ford Kenya deal, Ngilu went back to seek her deal. But sources say the only option now is for a merger as the window period for deal cutting lapsed. The former ruling party KANU is also part of the TNA URP UDF pact. This is after KANU signed a pact with UDF, which was enjoined in the Uhuru-Ruto Pact Tuesday. KANU National Chairman Gideon Moi confirmed the pact while addressing a public gathering in Marigat.
Kutoka leo, hiyo alliance tumekubaliana kwamba Uhuru Kenyatta na Musalia Mudavadi watagombeana hiyo kiti cha rais kwa nyumba yetu sasa, na ile risasi ambayo itatoka ndio hiyo tutaweka ndani na tukupiga hiyo risasi trigger hiyo.
Sisi yote baba tunasema hiyo ni winning outfit. Yes. Hiyo ni winning outfit. Hatutaki round 2. Tunataka tumalizie round gani?
The entry of Mudavadi into the Uhuru-Ruto fold is widely seen as a counter strategy to neutralize the ODM, Wiper and Ford Kenya pact. But critics say the Uhuru-Ruto candidature might be a decoy, while Mudavadi may be the probable presidential candidate. Samogina, KTN, Nairobi.
And so the alliance done and dusted, and the march to the ballot is now well and truly underway. But will they hold beyond the elections? That is the big question tonight, given the stark differences between some of the newfound allies. KTN's Emmanuel Talau now examines the ties that bind the parties and whether they would stand the test of time.
Such have been the emotional moments accompanying the sealing of political marriages witnessed in the last few days as the race to State House enters the home stretch. But underneath the happy moments are deep-rooted suspicion, bitterness and even hate. But all these have been pushed aside as the quest for power takes center stage. It's against this backdrop that observers say the alliances will not hold beyond March next year.
In my view, will this coalition last? Maybe, maybe not.
The alliance between Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka is perhaps one of the most exciting to watch, all due to their history characterized by love and hate in almost equal measure. Critics say theirs is a love-hate affair founded on a shaky ground.
Kalonzo Musyoka teaming up with Raila Odinga, it would work like magic, I think, like a very well-oiled machine, because they will have no option but to hang together in this particular instance. And as they say also, there are no permanent enemies in politics, only interests, and interests keep changing.
Kalonzo Musyoka will be the man to watch in the political marriage with ODM's Raila Odinga. Kalonzo abandoned Raila just days before the 2007 election. His departure and his teaming up with Mwai Kibaki after the Bank-called election denied Raila entry to State House.
This is not an MOU. Siku za MOU zimekwisha kwa sababu tumeona udanganyifu wa kutosha. Tulianza 2002 tukadanganywa.
Raila may have chosen to forget that as he makes another attempt on the presidency. But analysts say his rivalry with Kalonzo may not go away that easily and could erupt as soon as the elections are done.
Kama ningekuwa mtu wa kushikilia ghadhabu, hasira, singekuwa hapa leo na Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga.
I would also want to hypothesize that Kalonzo signed that deal using a pencil. Hypothetical position, I'm not sure that that pen was real or fake. It is because I do not think he might stay the full hog.
As for Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, the alliance could last for as long as they face trial at the International Criminal Court. The two face charges of crimes against humanity, and observers believe this is the court that binds them, and that it could melt easily as soon as they are sent to power, should they win in the next election.
Uhuru and Ruto are held together by the fear of the Hague. They're not doing this for the love of Kenya. They're not doing it for the love of our children. Otherwise, if they were, they can negotiate for the return of the IDPs to the respective places.
The inclusion of Musalia Mudavadi in this alliance is viewed as a precautionary measure that should public opinion against their candidature continue to build over the ICC trials, then Musalia could be used to diffuse it. And so as the dust settles after the hastily crafted political alliances, attention now shifts to the post-election period. Those crafting the alliances remain optimistic that they will last. But if history is anything to go by, then time will tell. Emmanuel Talam, KTN, Nairobi.
So with the deals now done, the battle shifts to the campaign trail. The politicians are already making lofty promises to their supporters even before the official campaign period begins. But are the voters asking the right questions? KTN's Asha Mwilu now takes a closer look at what the leaders are saying and whether it should matter to the voters.
The curtains on the coalition season finally drew to a close, and right on cue, the hefty promises followed.
Under our leadership and watch, never again will blood be shed.
It is a coalition of the willing. The other one we signed in order to stop bloodshed.
Kwa wale wote ambao wanataka tuungane, tupanue uchumi na tuhakikishe ya kwamba tukiwa na katiba mpya, tukiwa sasa na serikali za mashinani au devolved government, tutaungana pamoja nao.
Promises that perhaps for most Kenyans carry an almost nostalgic feeling. The irony is that these same leaders have held the country's highest and most influential positions in government for the past 10 years, leaving their renewed promises to transform Kenya appear to be just that, promises.
There are some elements of the coalitions that are telling us that they're about reforms. But these people are pimping the old revolution. Reforms came, hello.
Tulianza 2002, tukadanganywa.
Which is your last manifesto that you had given us before, and which is the new one? Can I now see what is different in the two?
What's more, economists say that the politics and politricks masked behind the negotiations of these pre-election pacts could in the end cost the Kenyan taxpayer even more.
These are individuals who want to be known so that tomorrow they can claim a position in the new government. If you are serious that we want a new Kenya, we must be serious we want new mindsets.
So with the campaigns set to intensify in the coming weeks, the voters' eyes slowly shifting to each aspirant seeking to be the next occupant at State House and what exactly they have to offer the country.
In your new tomorrow, can you convince me what you are structuring? How will your new government look like? I know the current one. What about the one you are talking about? How will it look like?
An issue-based election. Perhaps this is slowly turning to be one of those terms that become cliches during the campaigning season. And while political will is crucial in determining how a nation is governed, remember that the new constitution grants you, the voter, the key to being the main agent of change in this country. Asha Mwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
All right, despite the alliances and the mergers, fact is, you remain as the voter and you get to choose your president. Now, the voter registration turnout has been low, in fact, very worrying. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission intends to register at least, look at that number, 18 million voters before the anticipated March 4th elections. However, the IEBC has only registered 5.93 million eligible voters as of 1st of December 2012. And the number is not getting better at all. This is a turnout list of the best and the worst in terms of registered individuals and their regions. Nairobi maintains the highest turnout. If we can get the second board there. There we go, 760,000, with Isiolo experiencing the least turnout at 22,000 registered voters. There you are. Now, IEBC has reached the 75% success rate, which is not bad. Some would say even say it's quite good. In fact, you start crunching the numbers. That's when you get the real figures. If the IEBC intends to register 18 million voters in 30 days, it needs to register at least 600,000 registered voters in one day and 4.2 million voters in 1 week. The first week of registration misses this target by 1.4 million voters. And if registration holds steady at the current rate, that is, no higher nor lower, only 12 million voters will have been registered by the end of the registration period. That's a shortfall of 6 million voters. Now, there are malpractices that are causing setbacks for the IEBC's registration exercise. Among them, a report on youth perception on the electoral process that reveals 17% of youth will only vote if they are bribed. Others say they will only register to get favors from politicians, but will not vote. Cases of insecurity in some parts of the country have also slowed the process of registration. And lastly, the IEBC is now seeking a simpler way to woo and convince you, the voter, by sending a short text message. In fact, I got one today. But even if they do so, voting is not compulsory, and the election process will likely carry on regardless of the final number of voters registered. President Mwai Kibaki and Chairman of the Eminent African Personalities Kofi Annan have both acknowledged that low voter turnout would be an impediment to a successful election. However, it should be noted that the cost of non-participation is greater for the citizen than the politician. So you have to have you registered? Let me just ask that. Have you been registered as a voter? Are you planning to register? If not, why not? These should be the questions you should be asking yourself in the remaining 13 days to the deadline. So get registered. Well, to another story here, to the roads now, and all old ways are beginning to creep back barely a week after the new traffic came into effect. Police are admitting that some officers are forcing bribes out of motorists seeking to avoid the hefty fines in the new law. The government has, in the meantime, collected some 10 million shillings in fines since the law became operational. Catherine Omwanto reports on the state of the new law.
Day 5 and the new hefty penalties for traffic offences are starting to take their toll. The government has so far collected more than 10 million shillings in fines, and more than 2,600 motorists have been arrested since Monday. However, there are some motorists who seem to be looking for the easy way out.
Lakini wengi wetu tunavunja sheria. Na tukishavunja sheria kwa sababu tunajua fine iko kubwa, basi tunakimbilia kuhonga askari.
When the Traffic Amendment Act was passed in Parliament, there were fears that unscrupulous traffic police officers would use the opportunity to enrich themselves, a reason given by matatu operators when they went on strike on the 29th of November. But that boycott appears to have fizzled out. When it comes to the kitu kidogo mentality, it takes two to tango, and motorists are partly to blame for offering bribes to get out of paying 50,000 to 100,000 shillings in penalties, or even going to jail, depending on the offence.
For persons who will be disobeying the traffic rules, and more so the matatu drivers and conductors, I want to inform them that they should be prepared for a very abrasive legal action, including cancelling their licenses.
And the government is making it clear that the new law is here to stay.
And I find it absurd when I find the matatus, the operators and the owners of matatus organizing strikes. Why can they organize strike to stop death on our roads?
With the introduction of stiffer penalties for traffic offences and Transparency International ranking Kenya as the most corrupt country in East Africa, Kenyans will be waiting to see if traffic police live by the rule of law, or will it be business as usual? Catherine Omwando, KTN in Nairobi.
Let's now take you back to politics and the coalition agreements that were signed yesterday and others a few days before that. Let's now bring in Gishugu Member of Parliament and NARC Kenya presidential aspirant Martha Karua. Many thanks for joining us on KTN Prime. Mheshimiwa, 8 coalition agreements were signed as at the close of yesterday. You are not in any of them. And a lot of people are wondering what's the rationale behind you not being in any coalition?
I think to begin with, I have been very clear from the start, and NARC Kenya has been very clear as a party, that we are not forming any pre-election agreements. This is something our National Delegates Convention approved in December 2008. We have not moved from that position. We have had a pre-election agreement before with PNU. We burnt our fingers. We are not about to do it again. As a person, alliances of convenience, which add no value to the lives of Kenyans, do not attract me at all. I would want to be in an alliance based on values, shared ideals with the people of Kenya. And the reason I'm out there campaigning, and NARC Kenya is out there campaigning, is to convince a majority of Kenyans so that together we can form an alliance of values to win this election.
So in a way you see the alliances that have been formed in the last couple of days as the alliances of convenience?
Let whoever has formed define their own alliance. But for us, we are not, we don't feel the need to rush into an alliance of convenience. Remember that I was working with some of these people in the government before I resigned. I resigned because the government had moved from the path of reform, was tolerating corruption and impunity. The situation has gotten worse since. Why would I then go to the same things I walked away from? For me and for NARC Kenya, it is not capturing power whichever way and for the sake of it. It's about being able to transform the lives of Kenyans.
So you, with all these alliances, do you still believe that you will be Kenya's next president?
We are working towards that. And I want you to note that we as Kenyans are behaving as though the alliance way is the only way. I want to very firmly say there's always more than one way of doing things. And there's more than one way of doing politics other than the much hyped alliances. There is the path of each party to try and attract support and go to the ballot alone. That is the path we have chosen. We have chosen to walk with the voters and our supporters to the ballot. And that is the way we'll do it. And yes, there is time to win. Look at all those alliances. If any of those candidates were confident of winning on their own, they wouldn't have been rushing so desperately. Some of them have been showing in polls as leading contenders. We now know that they know what I've always known. There is a manipulation of polls, that nobody is ahead until the voters say so. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a mad rush. So I've been vindicated.
I'll bring you back to the poll question, but there is a sense of change in there, in the sense that a lot of these coalitions, the leaders are pointing out and saying, we are going to bring in change. What does a Martha Karua presidency, what can Kenyans expect from a Martha Karua presidency?
One, there will be discipline. We will apply the law without fear or favor. My first policy pillar is talking of fighting, or rather eroding, the power of impunity through a new spirit of constitutionalism. It means following our laws as stated in the Constitution. Therefore, there will be no sacred cows.
All right, it means,
then,
yes.
Once we do that, I call it 50% of, tackling 50% of the problem. It means that all the monies voted to give services to Kenyans will actually go to serve Kenyans. Today, we are losing a lot of money to corruption and impunity, because impunity is the twin of corruption. They feed on each other. You know, you can buy your way out. Even the indiscipline, the insecurity, the poor services we are getting are about corruption and impunity. So once we tackle that, then our policies on health, which we have a policy of universal access, education,
will all come to play.
Food security, will all be implemented.
All right, so it will involve following of laws, but the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has just released a report, a document rather, today, and in it says, if I may quote, politicians with cases that the courts can still vie until their cases are determined and appeals exhausted. Mheshimiwa, where then does this leave the integrity? A very
interesting statement, and that informs why the executive wants to manipulate the way in which the Director of Anti-Corruption Commission is appointed. I am asking this to Kenyans. Ministers step aside to be investigated. Does it make sense for a person who is not just under investigation but is actually charged to vie for a seat, which if they were to get it, they would have to step aside under our law? These are the issues we must be asking ourselves. It doesn't make sense at all. Yet, the prime body makes that announcement, which is actually contrary to the spirit of the laws that we have. So we have a long way to go in terms of reform. I'm just saying that the ultimate judge, the ultimate body that will vet all aspirants is the people of Kenya. Each voter has to take responsibility for their votes. Let's stop asking which way is it going. What do the people want? Start with yourself. What do you want? Which way do you want Kenya to go? Yeah.
Which then brings me to the kind of leaders, the kind of aspirants, the kind of aspirants that people will see at the ballot come 2013. And I'm looking at Chapter 6 of the Constitution on integrity and leadership. Can we still use this chapter to sort of lock out leaders who we deem are unfit?
I think that the way it is going, it is the voter who will have the task of determining. And we are saying, let's be fair to ourselves. Let's have the discourse. Let the media lead the way, because I'm sometimes feeling that we politicians have mesmerized the media into following our ways. If you looked at yesterday and even today, the media has been captured by coalitions. The talk is as though there is no other way of doing business except through coalitions. The media is actually, I saw a review on this station on me. You would have thought I was the criminal because I was not in the coalition. I was called names, that I have a menacing look. You can describe me with any adjective, but don't I have a right to hold my beliefs and to be where I will be?
Exactly.
Over to you, Kenyans, fellow Kenyans, to determine which way we go. We have a responsibility to ourselves.
All right, let me now give you the opportunity to describe yourself to Kenyans, because a lot of people seem to think that you come out as a strong personality, antagonizing, so to speak. If you're to describe yourself and talk to Kenyans and tell them who you really are, because you say this session was unfair to you, what kind of person would you say you are?
I am a regular person, just like you and the next person. I will fight when I need to fight. I will laugh when I need to laugh. But a media house can portray you only when you are in one mode, fighting. I always tell people, the face you wear to a funeral is not the same face you wear to a wedding. You'll be laughing, you'll be doing everything. I'm just as human as you. And that is a fact, that we are all human beings at the end of the day. But I am a committed person, committed to this country, to improvement of the lives of the people, passionate about it, and I'm looking to have a running mate, equally committed and passionate
so in
about
essence,
this.
So in essence,
country.
opinion polls have been unfair as well.
What I know is that opinion polls are only as good as the ethics of those carrying them out. If they are carried out in a manner that is unethical, they become questionable, whether it's science or whether it's opinion polls. And I have a big question mark on the ethics of the Kenyan opinion polls, especially in relation to who funds them. And even the timing, they always come to prop up politicians when they have battle in their houses. Sometimes they can even be twice a month, depending on which politician is in trouble. And I know that there are two sources of propping up those polls. Yeah.
We'll get to that in a different forum.
Yes.
Many thanks for joining us on KTN Prime. We have been speaking to Gishugu Member of Parliament, now Kenya presidential aspirant Martha Karua. She has been giving us an insight on the recent coalition that we have been witnessing in the last couple of days, why she believes she will be Kenya's next president, and the reason why Kenyans should vote for her. That is definitely something we're keeping an eye on as we head closer to the general election come March 2013. Well, now to a security worry in Nairobi's posh Kileleshwa estate. Gun-trotting youth have in the last few days invaded the area, terrorizing residents at night. A senior criminal investigation officer has told KTN that Kileleshwa police station that serves hundreds of Kileleshwa residents has for the last several months seen without an official vehicle for police duties. KTN's Dennis Onserigo reports on the trend that has now forced residents to plan a protest march this weekend.
It is only last week that a woman was carjacked while getting home from work. The family says the victim is too scared to appear on camera. The ordeal in the hands of those who robbed her at gunpoint and made away with her car, 50,000 shillings and a laptop, still haunts her 6 days later.
My brothers were in the house. They ran down to try and save the situation. By this time, the help had run in and said, so and so they want to finish her at the gate. So everyone runs out, and the most painful thing is that they were helpless. They couldn't do anything because these are guys with guns.
The gang appeared calm according to a family member, and despite Kileleshwa police station being less than 10 meters away from the scene of the 9 p.m. robbery, the gang took more than 5 minutes before finally driving away with their victim.
After we found her, luckily, that was about 3 hours, and went to pick her from a station. She was being told she's lucky she's alive, and they probably know who are behind it. They normally go there to pick dead bodies after jacking, so she's very lucky.
Less than 100 meters away from Kileleshwa police station is yet another robbery story. Celia Kiwinda was robbed at gunpoint by 3 men riding a motorcycle.
I'm scared for myself, I'm scared for my daughter, I'm scared for my neighbors, and I don't feel safe, and I live so near the police station.
The robbery on Mandera Road, just outside Kileleshwa police station, has unsettled residents here.
Kandara Road, Makueni, Mwingi, Odhaya, Githunguri Road, Tabera Crescent. Those are the main hotspots.
The area police commanders told KTN there are several cases of carjackings reported in the area, and not much ground has been covered in arresting the spate of robberies.
Most of those who have fallen victim to this vicious gang tell me when they go reporting the same to the police officers normally tell them they have just finished their normal patrols. Are gangsters taking over policing from the police?
What is worrying is the trend that every Tuesday of the week, at least one carjacking incident is reported. Without an official vehicle, police officers from Kileleshwa police station rely on vehicles from Kilimani police station. Most of the time, police officers conduct patrols on foot. Residents here fear that if something is not done, and done fast, the quiet gang that robs without firing a single shot might return. Dennis Onserigo, KTN Prime.
KTN Prime. Now to that story about young girls and early pregnancy, and KTN has learned of a shocking trend in which schoolgirls and other teenagers routinely use contraceptives, some at the behest of their parents.
Tonight we begin an in-depth look through 4 counties of this worrying trend that has baffled even government officials. Here is KTN's Anso Imwendia with that part 1 of Mothers Too Soon.
One of a parent's biggest worries, becoming a grandparent too soon. Every community in Kenya grapples with the challenge of early pregnancy. Faced with staggering statistics, we set out to find out what different communities in 4 counties are doing to deal with this challenge. Our first stop, Suba. Vida Acheng is a Form 1 student at Waondo Secondary School. She's one of the brightest too. Her consistent A's in her report forms tells of a story of brilliance and determination. These results hardly tell the story of a girl orphaned young, abused in an incestuous relationship, forced into a polygamous marriage, but who then walks out 11 years later and heads right back to class. Today, Vida is 26.
If not for death, I'll be somebody else now, because I know what I'm capable of.
When her mother died just after she was invited to join Form 1 at Luak Girls High School, Vida's life changed. At the age of 13, she got her first child out of incest. Relatives then decided to marry her off to a man 20 years her senior as a second wife.
I was still very young, but had to work hard to make the children and a living, to live just like others. The man would not even know that a child is supposed to go to school. I would have to do everything.
What made you decide to run away?
Try to make my future again. Try to plan it so that the children could not undergo what I want. So that I can be someone who can be here.
Today she's an inspiration to other students who are also mothers at Waondo School. The girls here say many of them were lured into early sex in exchange for favors like a motorbike lift.
You're a strong one, you know that? It takes a lot of courage to do what you have done. And it's okay to cry.
The first day, they don't ask you anything. The second day, they don't ask you anything. But the third day, they ask you that, now you are just going with me, you are taking mine without money. There's nothing which is going for free.
Now they know better. That's why they return to school. These 5 young women with me here are some of the most resilient students in Kenya today. I say resilient because they are all mothers. In spite of being mothers, they have decided to continue with their education. Waondo School has a population of 400, and just over half of the students here are orphaned, mainly as a result of AIDS. 35 out of 140 girls enrolled here are mothers. In other words, 1 in every 4 female students has a child.
We don't need a lot to say about it. Radical change, yes.
The principal, Simeon Ratego, says that orphaned girls who double up as household heads are extremely vulnerable. To make ends meet, some are forced to engage in sex for pay of some sort, like a lift to school. Others, who are taken in by grandparents, lack strong role models to guide them.
Issues of sexuality, they are considered sacred and can never be discussed at a sitting with the parent and the child. So the burden remains for the people in school, like us teachers, or maybe in the church.
Vida has since reunited with her paternal family, a family she met after her mother died. She lives with her grandmother. She tells me she's had to make some tough adjustments.
There I used to sleep in my own bed, a very big one. I will sleep the way I like. But when I came here, I will sleep at my grandma's house here. I will spread a mat, sleep there with my cousins.
As the eldest grandchild, Vida has many responsibilities in this homestead. But what is important for her is that now she has a second chance to pursue her dream to become a journalist. Her age is no deterrent, but it hasn't been easy.
Sometimes I will just cry because I'll just be thinking now of my own children. I've left them behind. They are suffering, and I came back to get the education. Yet sometimes I just spend even a week at home because of lack of school fee.
Her grandmother has got her back.
Koro konya kakada mare omiyo aere onyathi wuoda wuon mare maduong' nyamin mare bende nitie bende nosebiro kama onyuomna dhok achamo.
As she walks to the river at Luanda in Suba, Vida says that when she looks back at what she's been through, she feels motivated to fight on. After running away from her matrimonial home, her husband followed her to her grandmother's and reported her to the children's department for neglecting her children. When she tried to pick them up from Karachuonyo, where she was married, her husband refused to let them go. Vida explained that she had nowhere to take them. They were probably better off with their father, but it was no easy decision.
Sometimes even if I see somebody's child crying, I feel some pain. I just think mine is also crying on the other side.
When we first visited her at school, we asked her to think about escorting us to Karachuonyo to meet her estranged husband. During our second visit to her home, she still felt she was not ready to face her estranged family.
Me going there, I don't think it will happen much sooner. Maybe later, I will plan it later. But I wish I could see them even now.
How do you think they'll react when they see you finally?
I think they will be shocked because the last born, he was still very young. I don't think he will even recognize me.
She calls her neighbors often to ask how her 3 children are doing. Her grandmother's support is helping her wade through this murky journey. I ask her what she thinks about her granddaughter's decision.
Onge gima danga ne kum Karachuonyo, onge gima nonyuomo na. Iwinjo? Nyithindo to jali kawuono biro to gibiro dhi omo, to gikelo ka. Koro girito nyithindo. Koro somo, koro ka Nyasaye oyie, oneno kama dhi kete kod oyudo ng'ato, kod osomo chwere, sister beti nitie. Odhi ondik sister, oti, obi opedha go kapok atho.
And so Vida remains an icon of determination at her village in Luanda, her school at Waondo, and now her country, Kenya. She has remained at the top of her class for the 3 terms of this year. She is counting 3 more years ahead of her before she can pursue her dream career, journalism, and return to Karachuonyo to hopefully take her children and give them a better life. They, she says, are her motivation. Ansu Mwendia, KTN.
Good evening and many thanks for joining us. This is your home of business, Prime Business Today at exactly 5 minutes past 10. My name is Boni Tunya. Now, the World Bank has reviewed Kenya's economic prospect for 2012 to 4.3% from a previous 5%. This, the institution in its economic update says, has been occasioned by the high lending rates witnessed during the year. Now, at the same time, the government has signed 3 credit arrangements with a bank equivalent to 51.9 billion shillings to, among other things, boost energy efficiency. Now, Michael Karanja breaks down the figures.
The cut in the World Bank's forecast from 5 to 4.3% for this year is largely pegged on the high interest rates in the country. While the central bank has responded to slowing inflation by lowering its CBR, commercial banks have been slow in transferring the same to the market. Growth in the first half of the year has sharply fallen to 3.5% as key sectors like construction wilted under the weight of high commercial lending rates that topped 25%. The major shock that poses a threat to the high growth in 2013 remains, as always, stability during and after the general elections.
The report points out that in 4 of the last 5 years, Kenya has suffered from various types of shock. Economic shocks, weather-related shocks, such as the droughts in 2009 and 2011, as well as political shocks. And those have obviously been difficult for the economy to manage.
At the same time, the World Bank has signed a concessional loan worth 37.4 billion shillings for the construction of a 1,000-kilometer power line to Ethiopia. The line will enable the government to procure cheaper hydroelectricity from Ethiopia's Djibouti Dam. Kenya will buy the power at 5 US cents per kilowatt hour, which is much lower than most power producers sell their power to Kenya Power.
By connecting the power grids of Kenya and Ethiopia, this project kickstarts the eventual creation of a multi-country power pool across East Africa and the Horn of Africa. And this power pool in turn will make electricity supply less expensive over time and more reliable to the consumers connected to it.
A further 10.2 billion and 3.4 billion shillings will go towards improving the judiciary and the first phase of an infrastructure finance private-public partnership project. Michael Karanja, KTN Business Today.
Now, construction of Kenya's second container terminal at the Kilindini Harbour in Mombasa kicked off Wednesday with a groundbreaking ceremony officiated by President Mwai Kibaki. The second container terminal is set to have a 1.2 million annual container turnover. Here's the report. The project is funded by the Japanese International Cooperation Agency to the tune of 27 billion shillings. The second terminal is set to boost maritime transport and raise contribution of the transport sector to the Kenyan economy, as well as increasing the rate of employment opportunities.
Will also be very well positioned to cater for the projected container increase in excess of 960,000 20 equivalent units by the year 2015.
The Port of Mombasa has experienced rapid growth in cargo volumes over the past decade, outstripping the capacity of the current container terminal, which stands at 250,000 20 equivalent units.
Yaani faida tutakayopata ni yetu, kwani ni ya nani?
Recently, the Ministry of Transport carried out dredging of the Kilindini Harbour to enable the port accommodate large vessels. Currently, the only container terminal at Mombasa Port handles over 700,000 containers annually, which is an excess of 250,000 containers required as per the design of the port. The construction is expected to be completed by March 2016. The Cooperative Bank secured a 5.1 billion shillings from International Finance Corporation for onward lending to small and medium-sized enterprises in the agricultural sector. Philip Keitani witnessed the signing and has the details.
The funds will be channeled to the export sector and issued to customers with a healthy cash flow. The signing comes barely a year after the bank also acquired a 70 million euro equivalent of 7.5 billion Kenya shillings long-term debt from the European Investment Bank for lending to SMEs.
South Sudan is among the 18 countries in Africa that are considered to be fragile and conflict-affected states. Our strategy is very clear. It is to put priority in these countries and to try and be as present as we can.
According to IFC, the loan is designed to support Coop Bank in supporting agricultural projects and promoting economical inclusion in the East African region, noting that access to finance is a lifeline for small businesses, entrepreneurs in many African countries who are still excluded from the financial services.
I need to highlight that we have since concluded our strategic joint venture into South Sudan. It was very critical for us because we didn't want to go into South Sudan like any other bank. We wanted to go here in a vehicle that will enable the South Sudanese people to be part of it. And the government of South Sudan agreed to be a 49% shareholder in that bank. We will hold 51% of the shares, and the 49% will be held on behalf of the Sudanese cooperative movement.
IFC has also extended a further $5 million trade line to Cooperative Bank through its Global Trade Financial Program. To date, IFC has teamed up with 10 Kenyan banks and 1 microfinance institution to boost the SME sector. Philip Keitani for KTN Business Today.
And now time for market numbers coming up in the Financial Markets Review next. Well, that's business. My name is Boni Tunya. Let's meet tomorrow.
KTN Business Today.
Good evening and welcome to Prime Sports Today. My name is Sadiq Shaban. A ray of hope for government support is shining on the doors of Cricket Kenya. Sports Minister Babu Namwamba, who visited the association offices today, promised government support to the newly elected board chaired by city lawyer Zehra Jan Mohammed. Namwamba also handed the national flag to the national under-19 team that is heading to Tanzania for the World Cup qualifier.
It was as if the government was waiting for Cricket Kenya polls before deciding whether or not to support the sport, which 10 years ago was the envy of many sporting associations in Kenya. Sports Minister Babu Namwamba visited the new board chairman at the association's offices in Ruaraka, where he promised the government support.
Parliament will enact the sports bill, which would be a fantastic shot in the arm for Kenyan sports across the board, whether you're talking about cricket, football, athletics or any other sporting discipline.
We have to work together for the greater good, and I've got to give full credit to the provinces for the way they have actually even accepted me and the way they've dealt with me.
Babu also handed over the national flag to the women's under-19 team. The team will be traveling to Tanzania for the Africa Women T20 World Cup qualifiers.
I want to work with Jackie and Cricket Kenya and all interested parties in this game, for us to return Kenyan cricket to the old glory days. We want to see Kenya holding her own against the best in the world.
The senior men's team has been hosting their Ugandan counterpart in a series of friendly matches at the Ruaraka club. The Ugandans are coached by Kenyans Martin Suji and former Kenya captain Steve Dikolo. The friendly matches are expected to help Kenya shape up for the ICC World Cricket League. Victor Ogale, KTN Sports.